How's it going, people? Welcome back to Casual Gamer Reviews. Today, I'm looking at The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, developed by Nintendo in association with Grizzo. It took me around 20 hours to complete this game, reviewed on Nintendo Switch. If you like the content, please consider hitting the like button and giving a follow or a subscribe. Let's get into it. In Echoes of Wisdom, you play as Zelda, as Link gets captured at the very beginning of the game. She teams up with a trusty companion called Tri and is given the Tri Rod. The gameplay revolves entirely around this rod and the echoes it produces. Almost everything you encounter can be learned as an echo, whether it be an inanimate object like a bed, table, tree or pot, or an enemy like the familiar bokoblins, keys or knights. The inanimate objects are used primarily for platforming, and although you feel like you have a lot of creativity in this sphere, it does boil down to bed stacking at some points, as it is by far the most efficient. I use the bed, the cloud and the trampoline for pretty much the entirety of my platforming by the endgame, which does shatter that illusion of creativity. However, if you have more patience, I suppose you can try and invent cool ways to platform, and this can be more fulfilling for you. There is a section in the Zora area where you learn the echo for a water cube, and you can swim vertically as well as horizontally, and I really loved that. On the combat side of things, you will mostly be fighting using the echoes of monsters, but you also have a power where Zelda transforms into Link for a short time and can use a sword, shield, a bow and a bomb. This is restricted to an energy bar which doesn't last too long, so you can't rely on this as a prominent combat mechanic. Fighting with echoes was really tedious once you get into the latter half of the game. You summon an echo of one or two monsters and stand to the side and just watch the combat play out. It's novel to start, but then gets a touch boring as you get to your 50th encounter. Not to mention the amount of air balls thrown. Your echoes and the enemies will miss each other probably about 30% of the time, and this can make it drag even more. Tri will level up as you progress through the story, and they get an additional energy triangle attached to them as you do so. These energy triangles represent the amount of echoes you can have present at one time. Most platforming items will have a cost of 1 or 2 triangles, but the monsters will have 3 or 4 and some even 5 when you get to the end game. For reference, when I was on the final boss, Tri had 6 energy triangles, meaning I could only summon 1 strong monster or 2 mid-level ones. Zelda can also shoot Tri out to attach to objects and move them around like a kind of kinesis spell. Interestingly, this also works the other way around, and you can choose for Zelda to follow the motion of the object instead, and this led to some truly creative puzzle solutions. Another gameplay mechanic that exists is the smoothie making system. Much like previous Zelda games, most recently Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, it is this game's version of cooking meals. You gather ingredients on your travels, and at these smoothie stations you can then make smoothies to restore health, energy, swim faster, hot and cold resistance, etc. Something you will be familiar with if you've played these games. The smoothies can only be made one at a time though, and this is painful. A quality of life feature I would expect from a game in 2024. You can explore to find hearts to increase your health, you can also get some with story progression, and you can also find chests. The chests in this game were almost completely not worth it. Pretty much the only thing you get is rupees, this game's currency. With previous titles you can find cool weapons and armor, but as the combat in this game is almost completely limited to echoes, these items just aren't present. Exploration is not as interesting when at the end your reward is a chest that just contains a little bit of money. Something new to this game that I did love was automaton engineer Dampé. He is discovered through a side quest, but if you bring him echoes that he loosely describes to you, he will make you a mechanical super monster that is awesome in combat. They don't use energy triangles, so you can use them in addition to echoes, and they rock. They are super powered and really help liven up the combat for me in the later stages of the game. My only slight complaint with them is that I think they break too quickly, meaning you need to return to him to fix them, but otherwise I thought they were amazing. Each main area has its own dungeon, and is a split between platforming and puzzle solving and then fighting a big boss at the end. The first 2 dungeons I thought were fantastic and really creative, especially the one in the Zora territory like I mentioned earlier, but the middle few were not as interesting. It did finish strong though, and the final dungeon was the best in my opinion. One thing that was consistently great throughout all of these dungeons were the final bosses, each bringing a new mechanic and a specific way in which to defeat them. These were the sections that actually made you use your full range of echoes, and that was really important. There wasn't a single boss battle that I didn't enjoy. The final boss is an absolute spectacle and a long fight that is a worthy conclusion. One final thing I want to say about the gameplay is that there are a couple of forced stealth sections in this game where you have to restart if you are seen. Sections like this always frustrate me in games, and although they are short-lived, I didn't expect them in this title, so I didn't enjoy that. Moving on to visuals. The art style of this game is the same as the 2019 Link's Awakening remake. It is the short, stubby characters that look almost toy-like. I like this art style, but understand it's not for everyone. The real standout for me were the colours. This art style makes the colours absolutely pop. This was most noticeable in the Farron Wetlands, which I thought was gorgeous. I also loved Zelda's character model. She has a couple of outfits in the game too, and all of them are great, especially the cat costume. Every single boss design is unique and has that wow factor. Like most Nintendo games, this game runs at 30 FPS and even then it stutters. These frame dips didn't seem to happen when fighting bosses, but when exploring Hyrule, and especially in towns and cities, it was noticeable. The audio and music is beautiful. It's really tranquil at times. The wind instruments take the pedestal and produce some truly majestic melodies. You will recognize a fair few sound bites from previous games as Hajime Wakai returns as music director. The characters are not voiced as you'd expect, but they do make sounds, and Zelda has an especially ear-piercing scream when you fall from height, like I did many times. The story sees an evil power spreading rifts throughout Hyrule and eating everything in its path. At the beginning, Link is taken into one of these rifts, and so it is up to Zelda and Tri to travel around and mend them. You travel to all the familiar territories like the Zora, Gerudo and Goron, as well as a couple of others, and aid them in their troubles caused by the rifts. It is very cookie cutter and follows a simple trend of travel to the city, help with a couple of quests, defeat a big boss and mend the rift. Then travel to the next one and repeat. Once all the rifts are mended, you can then go and challenge the final boss. There are no real twists and turns, but there are a couple of story beats involving echoes which made it slightly more interesting. It was no Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, but it wasn't bad. It was just okay. There is some side and bonus content to be engaged with here. There is a Dream Dojo which gives combat challenges, an Acorn Collection Guy which provides platforming challenges, a flag race on horses, a race with the Gorons, and even a gliding challenge. These were all great, and some were really tough if you want that difficulty. What I did not enjoy was the stamp guy. Sometimes on your travels you will come across a stamp station where you can stamp your card. Each card has 5 stamps, and once filled, the stamp guy will give you a reward. Every single reward I got from this was pretty much worthless, and so I didn't find it was worth my time looking for these. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is by no means a bad game. It has a really interesting concept, and at times the creativity can feel top class, but at other times it can feel not fully realized. The combat is not good and the performance stutters. The story is cookie cutter and not standout. However, the music and art is fantastic and the platforming is really fun. There is a goodie bag full of enjoyable side content and bosses were excellent. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom gets a casual gamer score of 7 out of 10. If you like the content, please consider leaving a like and subscribe, and for everything casual gamer, keep it here. Peace and love.